On today's episode of Locked On Oilers, we are talking about the Oilers Hall of Fame as they introduce the new concept today. Let's talk about who's going to be in there and who could potentially be in there in the future. All on today's episode of Locked On Oilers.
You're Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On Oilers podcast. I'm your host and former Oilers game day producer, Brett Holden. As mentioned on today's episode, the Edmonton Oilers have announced they are opening up the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame. So what does that entail? We will talk about that in just a little bit here. They are also introducing 2 new inductees along with the 10 others they already have. But they are going to introduce 2 others on September 20th. So who will they introduce? We will talk about that a little later on today's show. And finally, maybe somebody who won't see his name on the Edmonton Oilers Wall of Fame, while they're calling it or Hall of Fame, but they're also going to have a Ring of Fame as well going on at Rogers. And in the final period of today's episode, the ghost of Oilers past, I have a pretty strong feeling won't be there. But maybe for the Växjö Lakers. He did play very well in Sweden. So there's your little hint heading into the final segment of today's episode of Locked On Oilers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you find your podcast. Alrighty. Yes, the news broke today as I bring my notes over top here that the Edmonton Oilers are opening up the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame. That announcement coming out at about 9 o'clock this morning. So a top of the morning to you, as many say. But the Edmonton Oilers are going to introduce the Hall of Fame. Now, the inaugural inductees into the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame is exactly who you think it is. It is the 10 banners that hang up at Rogers Place right now. Obviously, I'm pretty sure they were all raised in Rexall, so not necessarily in Rogers. They were just moved over. But that includes Al Hamilton, the Edmonton Oilers' first captain. Wayne Gretzky, if you ever heard of him, Yari Curry, Grant Fuhr, Paul Coffey, Mark Messier, Glenn Anderson, Kevin Lowe, Glenn Sather, and of course, Rod Phillips. How could you forget about Rod Phillips? Those are the inaugural inductees into the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame. Now, they will also be recognizing every inductee since then, also with a Ring of Honor that will go above. All inductees will have their names above the PCL Loge level, so basically where all of the tables are, that is where it will be. All the names will be portrayed out there, displayed is the better word there. But yeah, they are going to also induct 2 new names, being the committee or the 10 original inductees will induct 2 other names into the Hall of Fame on September 20th ahead of the opening of the Edmonton Oilers spring camp? Not spring camp. I keep calling it training camp. There we go. Ahead of training camp on September 20th there. So we'll talk about some names that could potentially be going on to that Ring of Honor in a little bit. But I just want to talk a little bit more about this idea of the Hall of Fame. Now, the Hall of Fame will also include trainers. It will also include coaches, as we see. It can also include voices of the team in regards to Rod Phillips. Maybe Bob Stauffer will be up there someday. I'm sure a lot of people just cringed at that one, but hey, Bob Stauffer's Bob Stauffer. But there will be names, I'm sure. I hope Ben Selter will be up there. I shouldn't mention him before Joey Moss. I'm sure Joey Moss will also be up there as well. So there are a lot of names that will eventually be up there. And I'm interested to see how many names they can get on there, because the Edmonton Oilers organization is a storied organization. even when the Edmonton Oilers weren't doing fantastic, there were still a lot of influential names and people around the organization. Maybe not even necessarily on the ice, but around the organization as well. I will be very interested to see some of the names that they throw up there that aren't maybe fan favorites. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see. Now, the Maple Leafs could never. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, I had to do that. But no, the Edmonton Oilers organization has a fantastic history. It has, has bred the greatest players this sport has ever seen. They have bred the greatest team this sport has ever seen. Numerous of the greatest teams ever. And literally the greatest team ever. So there will be a lot of names, and there's, of course, a lot of history that can be displayed here for the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame. I hope maybe they can turn something into kind of a physical Hall of Fame. I haven't seen anything on that yet, but I want to see kind of something more physical as well for the fans who have been around since the 1970s. I was born in 1996 when the Edmonton Oilers still had red trim on their jerseys, so I didn't get to see the 80s, the 70s when the Oilers were in the WHA. You didn't really get to see that. I didn't get to see that type of Oilers hockey. So it'd be nice for the younger generations to go and be able to congregate somewhere and see the history of this team, but also for the people who were around there to be able to go and see those players, the memorabilia that they have there, that they could potentially have there as well. So then they can get back and relive some of those times when Edmonton was at its best. And now with Edmonton, with the Oilers potentially, the Edmonton Oilers right now can be and will be a favorite to win the Stanley Cup this year. And the city of Edmonton hasn't had that for a long time. And I've acknowledged that the city of Edmonton is always better when the Edmonton Oilers are winning. And the Edmonton Oilers were winning a lot in the 80s and the early 90s. So being able to have the older generations pass along the stories to the younger generations is imperative for this hockey team. I know personally for me, my dad had season tickets since the Edmonton Oilers came to Edmonton. He loved the Edmonton Oilers. He loved them. And the amount of phone conversations I've been able to have with him, and just conversations in general, about him saying, I just want you and your generation to live through an Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup, even if it's just one. He got to live through 5. I haven't. Most of my generation hasn't, and the next generation after me, and the next generation after those, haven't. I grew up with the 2006 Edmonton Oilers. That was the best team that I grew up with, so I can get pretty reminiscent of those days. But then most kids that were growing up in the 2000s had to grow up with the Taylor Hall, the Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Jordan Eberle hockey teams, where there was just a carousel in net. And being able to pass down just the great ideas and the fantastic history of this team to those kids who got to just sit there and watch Ty Ratty on the Edmonton Oilers first line is important for this team. So I think this Hall of Fame idea is fantastic, and I'm really excited to see what can happen next. I hope they can turn something physical into it, not only the Ring of Honor, but something for Oilers fans to also celebrate the team as well. So, who else will join those 10 names in the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame? Well, we will talk about that in just a second, but first, I want to tell you about our partners over at Built. If you haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, what are you doing? You're depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. And guess what? There is a new flavor out now. Are you ready? Delicious, indulgent cookie dough. Yes, cookie dough covered in chocolate. That is right. Built has done it again. Let me introduce you to your new favorite cookie dough chunk puffs. They have a light and chewy texture with real cookie dough chunks. And of course, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All the joys of eating cookie dough without the hassle of actually having to make it. Plus, it is healthy for you. All Built Bars have collagen proteins, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits for you and your body. Eat something that tastes good and is actually good for you. You are going to love the new cookie dough chunk puff, whether you need a snack for your workout, a late night treat, or just need to grab a quick bite. Built is the perfect protein bar, and they taste better than a candy bar. They taste better than a candy bar. Ditch the calories, fat, and sugar. Grab yourself a Built bar. Head to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15, that is 15, to get 15% off your next order. That is LOCKEDON15, 15, to get 15% off your next order at Built.com. Alrighty, as I bring my notes over as to who I think should be in the conversation for the Ring of Honor. Obviously, as mentioned, the Edmonton Oilers will be announcing 2 extra inductees into the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame come the September 20th, and they will be decided on by the Edmonton Oilers' current Hall of Famers. So, who could that be? I have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 names here that I think these are all players that have played for the Edmonton Oilers organization. There's somewhere I'm like, okay, he's certainly got to be on here at some point. There's somewhere I'm like, maybe they should be, but either way, the first name, and I think it's the one on the tip of everybody's tongue, it's got to be, I think, Mr. Oiler, Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is the embodiment of the Edmonton Oilers. I can get emotional talking about Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith is the reason why so many people my age became Edmonton Oilers fans. Heck, I have a ball hockey game later today, and I'm excited because I have long hair now, and I'm going to have hair coming out of my helmet like Ryan Smith. There's the amount of Edmonton Oilers fans growing up that found out about flow and found out about playing tough hockey in front of the net. And one of their earliest memories is seeing Ryan Smith lose a tooth and then come back and score the game-winning goal in the playoffs. Like, there are so many Ryan Smith moments that just tear you up because that is exactly the embodiment of what being an Edmonton Oiler was. This guy got ran over by, I'm pretty sure it was Glenn Anderson in Banff as a child, running after him because he played for the Edmonton Oilers, and the Edmonton Oilers were his favorite team, and he still had the t-shirt with the tire mark over top of him. He is the embodiment of the Edmonton Oilers. In 971 games played as an Edmonton Oiler, 296 goals, 335 assists, good for 631 points, 7th all-time for the Edmonton Oilers in the organization. It's such a shame that his captaincy came as his final game as an Edmonton Oiler in the NHL, but I mean, he would have been probably the greatest captain in Oilers history. But I rambled on Ryan Smith too much. I love Ryan Smith. The second name on here, now this one's a little bit of I think this one is a little bit debatable, but I think this is also a little bit of my youngness is showing out. But I have Dwayne Rollerson. Dwayne Rollerson is another name that I think could be introduced at some point. Could he be one of the first names put up there? Maybe not. I think the next name is somebody who should be up there more or quicker or before Dwayne Rollerson, but I think Dwayne Rollerson should still be up there for the Ring of Honor. 193 games played as an Edmonton Oiler, 78 wins as an Edmonton Oiler, with 6 shutouts, which is tied for 7th all-time for the Edmonton Oilers. Obviously, he was a goaltender that was acquired the night before the trade deadline in 2006, led the Edmonton Oilers on that fantastic Stanley Cup run. If you ask ask so many Edmonton Oilers fans, including me, who were around for that 2006 Cup run, everybody would have said that if he didn't go down, the Oilers would have won the Cup, and it's probably true. So Dwayne Rollerson, really a turning point, I think, for this organization, turning point for a lot of Oilers fans as well. I think a lot of Oilers fans remember him as kind of one of the first goaltenders that they remember as a younger generation and really loved for the Edmonton Oilers. So I think Dwayne Rollerson would be a fantastic name to have on there. Now, the next name I have on here is another goaltender, but I think this name should be on the Ring of Honor before Dwayne Rollerson, so I think this one's a little bit of a better name to put up there as the inaugural 12 up there, because I think he's also a goaltender that if he wasn't behind Grant Fuhr through all those years, or with Grant Fuhr all those years, I think he would already be up in the rafters. Maybe not even that. I think it would be more the fact that he played on such fantastic Oilers teams, and the Edmonton Oilers have so many banners already. I think he should have a banner in Edmonton, and I think my dad does too. But either way, I think Billy Ranford should have his name up there. It's been a long time coming. I think Bill Ranford, I mean, everybody says Grant Fuhr is the Edmonton Oilers' best goaltender of all time. I would definitely put Bill Ranford up there as well. They're just a fantastic goaltender. 444 games played as an Edmonton Oiler, and that is first in the Edmonton Oilers, for the Edmonton Oilers. He has the most amount of appearances, as an Edmonton Oilers goaltender all time. So he needs to be up there. 167 wins as an Edmonton Oiler. 6th all time in shutouts with 8. So another guy, he has to be up there right away here, if not like literally the first one. He is also 2nd all time in wins for the Edmonton Oilers organization, behind only, of course, Grant Fuhr. So Billy Ranford needs to be up there. Next I have, this one is, I can see a little bit of a debate here, but I was surprised to see how many games Doug Weight played for the Edmonton Oilers. 588 games played for Doug Weight, 157 goals, 420 assists, good for 577 points. What a fantastic Oiler Doug Weight was. 9th all time in points in the Edmonton Oilers organization. I think he did a lot of fantastic things for the organization, a little bit before my time as well, but one of the best players to play the game as well, one of the more underrated too. He's also the highest scoring American for the Edmonton Oilers organization as well. So Doug Weight, I think you could throw in there and people would still... Even Billy Guerin was a name that I was debating on throwing in there. Maybe a little... I don't know. I think that's a little bit more for the 90s Oilers fans there. But I still think Doug Weight, a massive name in the Edmonton Oilers organization, made a big impact for the Edmonton Oilers. So I think Doug Weight could be up there at some point. Next, this one is also a little bit debatable, but I think is one of the... especially since the start of the 2000s, I think is the Edmonton Oilers' best captain, maybe other than Connor McDavid, but even then, I think Gator, Jason Smith, deserves a little bit of love in the Edmonton Oilers organization. Played 542 games in the Oilers organization, 31 goals, 82 assists, 113 points, but was just a leader on and off the ice. Everybody respected the guy. Everybody did. So I think Jason Smith deserves to be up there just because of the contributions that he made to the Edmonton Oilers hockey team. Like, again, not a guy who is the flashiest, not the guy who is always out there putting himself out there, but always a guy who did everything for the crest. And I think Jason Smith deserves a little love. These last two names are the older names here as well. I think a lot of maybe older Oilers fans are listening going like, what, you're an idiot. There's obvious other names that need to be talked about. I know. I'll get to them right now. Esa Tikkanen deserves some love. Like, the fact that Esa Tikkanen doesn't also have something up there for a little love of him. 522 games played for Esa Tikkanen, 178 goals, 258 assists, good for 436 points. He is 13th all-time in the Edmonton Oilers organization, and and he was there, if I'm not mistaken, for all 5 of the Edmonton Oilers Cups. So just a guy who just a constant in the Edmonton Oilers organization at their best. There's not much that needs to be said more about Esa Tikkanen. He is just one of the best and was on the best ever teams in the game in general. And then finally, I think Craig Simpson should get a little love. Craig McTavish is another name that I was going to throw in there as well, but then I'd just be getting into a long list as well. I'm going to throw in Craig Simpson as well. I think he had a pretty decent time as an Edmonton Oiler, but it's more just the impact that he's had off the ice as well within the Edmonton Oilers community and the Edmonton community as well. I think that's going to come into play for a lot of the people that end up getting sent into the Ring of Honor. Obviously, as mentioned as well, I think Joey Moss will get in there. Ben Stelter will get in there as well. So I think there's a lot of names that will go up there and won't get a lot of debate. I think everyone will go, yes, that's somebody who deserves to be up there. I mean, again, the Edmonton Oilers have a long history, a storied history. I can't wait to see who goes there. Again, I think it's a fantastic idea, and an idea for the next generation to really learn about one of the greatest organizations in the NHL. But let's move on to a name that will not be on there because he only played like 33 games as an Edmonton Oiler. His biggest highlight as an Edmonton Oiler is him freaking out on the bench to his defenseman, throwing his mask and water bottle and sitting on the end of the bench after getting pulled. So if that doesn't give you a little bit of a hint, we will talk about the ghost of Oilers past in just a second, but first, I just want to thank you for making Locked On Oilers your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, make sure you tune in to Locked On NHL, as Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. Stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. Me and Jess are on that this week for your Western Conference Wednesdays, as we are talking about the JT Miller contract and the Vegas Golden Knights. We have a good long conversation about the Vegas Golden Knights, the second newest franchise in the NHL. What to expect from them? Is Jack Eichel the issue there? What is the issue there? What are the expectations for Bruce Cassidy? There is a lot to talk about today. So after this, make sure you tune into that because it was a good conversation. But let's move into the ghost of Oilers past. The ghost of Oilers past today is one who played 33 games. As mentioned, he was a goaltender, so he had a record of 9-18. A career goals against average as an Edmonton Oiler at a 3.26 and a save percentage of 0.894. That goaltender is none other than Victor Foss. Yes, today's ghost of Oilers past is Victor Foss. What a time the Edmonton Oilers had with Victor Foss. I won't lie, his first season with the Edmonton Oilers, it made sense why he was there. In 2013, 2014, he came, I believe, at the trade deadline, if I'm not mistaken, little later on in the season, but he had a record of 3-3-1, had a goals against average of 2.73, isn't fantastic, but is pretty decent. And then a save percentage of a .914. And you're sitting there going, you have a little bit of a goalie on our hands here, maybe. No, the next season he went 6-15 with a goals against average of 3.41 and a save percentage of .888. I wish I was making that up. I think Ben Scrivens was the backup goalie at that time too. So the Edmonton Oilers had a awful time in that. That's what I'm kind of talking about with like Dwayne Rollerson, because he was like the last stable goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers. And then all of a sudden it was Devin Dubnyk, Jeff Delorier was in there. Who else was in there for a little while? Matthew Guérin. Oh no, Matthew Guérin was he? He was after Dwayne Rollerson. Like, there were some ugly names playing for the Edmonton Oilers. Ty Conklin, UC Markkinen. Shout out UC Markkinen. His son just got drafted into the NHL. But yeah, no, like just not a lot of great goaltenders. And then now the Edmonton Oilers now have Jack Campbell. They had Mike Smith. We had who else did the Edmonton Oilers had? Cam Talbot. That's who I was thinking of. So after Victor Foss, the Edmonton Oilers did get Cam Talbot. So there's a little bit of love there. Thanks, Victor. But then after the Edmonton Oilers, that was his last stop in the NHL. He then left for Europe, went to the KHL in 2015, went to play for CSKA Moscow. Played not too bad over there, to be honest with you. 41 games played, 28-6 was his record. He had a .924 save percentage a .925 save percentage and a 1.68 goals against average in the KHL. He was there from 2015 to 2017, and then in 2017 he left the KHL for the SHL, the Swedish Hockey League. He went to the Växjö Lakers. He played 211 games for the Växjö Lakers, went 74-46 over his career there. There he had the .924 save percentage and a .210 goals against average there as well. Retired in 2021, took the year off, and is now working at Växjö as part of the leadership team there. I will read a quote from the coach there, because this is new. This is within the last 2 weeks, as Victor Faust decided to join the Växjö Lakers in a leadership role. But just over a year has passed since star goalkeeper. This is straight from the Växjö website. Just over a year has passed since star goalkeeper Victor Faust chose to end his successful career, but the passion for ice hockey lives on. And now he gets a chance to once again be close to the sport in his heart, where he takes on a new role at the club. Now, the sporting director of Växjö, who was the sporting director when Faust was on the team, went on to say, "We are extremely pleased to be able to welcome Victor Faust back to the Växjö Lakers. Victor will be a part of our leadership team and will work with the players in the national team and the hockey high school on an individual level. In addition, he will keep goalkeeper sessions on the youth side. Our ambition is to create a daily mentorship that will be developmental for the boys in hockey technical details, as well as on a personal level." So, a guy that is beloved in Växjö. Clearly, a bunch of congratulations to Victor Faust there. I mean, I always wanted Faust to succeed here. I always liked him. I thought he had a cool name. He had a cool mask, too, coming out of Anaheim. But either way, let's call it there. What a week we have coming up. Spring camp, training camp. I don't know why I keep calling it spring camp. Training camp is right around the corner. I can't wait for hockey season to get started here. Who do you want to see in the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame? Did I miss any names that you're like, what are you doing? Like, name this guy. So let me know who you want to see in the Edmonton Oilers organization, or the Edmonton Oilers Hall of Fame, I should say. We shall call it there. We shall see you tomorrow on Thursday. I hope you stay safe. Have a wonderful day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, and play La Bamba, baby.